Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prairie Podcast. My name is Andrew Weeb. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, as always. No matter who you are, whether you're a student, a friend of a student, a parent of a student, or maybe you're a staff alumni or someone connected to Prairie, no matter who you are welcome to be here. And today we've got a real exciting guest with us today. So why don't you introduce yourself to us, Kevin? Just tell us a bit about who you are, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I'm Kevin Peters. I've been at Prairie for 30-some years, since 1991. I came to Prairie having been in pastoral ministry in Alberta for a dozen years in two different places. And I realized during pastoral ministry that I needed further education. There was a graduate school here at that time. And so I tested the waters a couple of summers previous to our coming here by coming to a summer course. And I felt that I would have a very solid education here at the master's level. I chose to do an MDiv, which is a 3-year program. And so we moved down here.
Okay.
And my wife, Sharon, worked in the alumni office for 10 years. So that was part of, making school affordable.
Yep.
And we have two kids, now eventuated into two kids plus 8 grandchildren.
Oh man, congratulations.
So so it's a lot of energy in the room. So it's good stuff. Good stuff, yeah.
Okay, so that's how you kind of got here. I'm curious, what sort of things have you been up to? Because you took education and
as an MD, I took my MDiv here. Yeah. And I was fully intent upon going back into pastoral ministry.
Okay.
However, Prairie asked me to stay on and consider the role of Dean of Student Development.
Okay.
It was sort of a new role for them. There were different kinds of roles that they were amalgamating into this one particular role. And so I considered that, and I took the job.
Okay.
And so our family has been here since and raised here from that. During the 12 years that I was Dean of Student Development, I also took a couple more master's degrees, one in counseling psychology and one in general psychology. And that sort of got me into the classroom. And I've always liked the balance of, administrative classroom kind of stuff, but I was intrigued about how people think and behave, because that's what I was running into as Dean of Student Development, is like, what's behind this person?
What is he thinking?
What are they thinking when they do this? So that was sort of, that was a little bit of intrigue on my part, trying to figure that out. And as I moved more into the classroom, I also held other administrative posts. So I was academic dean for 3 years when we transitioned, when Mark Maxwell first came on. And then I went into being the director of director of institutional assessment.
Okay.
I was that for 10 years. That's sort of the accreditation stuff, making sure that was going through and being looked at. And then I've developed some programs, and currently I'm a program coordinator.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So among the classroom duties, which I thoroughly love, I've also had a balance of administration, which for me has been really good. I like that kind of a variety of inputs.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been helpful for me. So that's sort of how I've moved about the institution.
That's a bit of the journey.
Yeah.
So you're a program director. Which program is that again?
Counselling and Christian Formation at this point in time. So I inherited that from Counselling and Christian Formation program is about 10 years old.
Okay.
And it's gone through different iterations and tweaks and changes. And the change that was probably most inevitable is the one that was most recently made, where we are more focusing on the people helping skills. But we don't want to lose Christian formation, because it is all about character. When you're walking with people, they got to trust you, and you got to trust yourself in those situations. So what does that mean? Well, it means there's some growth that has to take place. So how do we facilitate that growth in Christian formation? So a little both, they're hand in glove.
Exactly. Go together.
They go together. And so it'd be interesting to see how that facilitates itself over the course of time.
Certainly. I think it's a lovely program because, like you said, you kind of get those two tracks, but I don't even know if they're two tracks. They're almost kind of one track because they work hand in hand. Like you say, you're building up that formation, some of that character, learning the people helping skills, learning how people think, how we respond to that, and where do Christians fit into that role?
That's right. Yeah, and where do they fit in? And I think when obviously we can only provide it to an undergraduate level and to a certain degree. And so you want to engender behind all of that. You want to engender in the student a desire to continue to grow, and I think that's the other thing too. You don't stop learning.
No,
so
you haven't stopped learning yet.
Not yet. I'm as curious as I was back in grade 3 when I got detentions for being curious. Through that all, it's just not a bunch of content you're throwing at people.
Yeah.
You're putting the content out there so that they can amalgamate that with their own personal and spiritual growth. And that's sort of, that's the exciting part for me.
That is exciting. Okay. And I'm curious, in summary, how many years have you been at Prairie here then?
So I've been since 1991, so that's like 34 years.
Yep.
Something
Certainly.
like that. The first 3 years I was in graduate school, but I was also teaching as a graduate TA at that time. So I taught some undergraduate courses during that time as well.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience at Prairie. You've been here through the decades. I'm kind of curious to hear from you, what sort of things have you enjoyed about your time, or things you love about Prairie, maybe some stories, some things going on there if you'd be willing to share.
Yeah, I think we've gone through a tremendous amount of change in the time that I've been here. And it's not been easy.
Yep.
It's not been easy. But I think because my focus wasn't so much on the institution, but I think more on what's happening in the lives of students, that I just enjoy the academic environment. Yeah. And that has... That's kept me here, seeing change in students' lives. So there's sort of two times that I reflect upon and I say, well, that's what's keeping me here at Prairie. And one of them is graduation.
Okay.
So when I see students coming, walking down that aisle, getting capped and gowned and all that kind of, getting the diploma, it just sort of says, yes. It's been worth it.
Yep.
It's been worth it. Easy? Probably not, but it's been worth walking together with that. And the second time is actually when I see students coming back for their second year.
Yep.
There's a different attitude there. They're not sort of lost and trying to figure life out away from home. They're owning their responsibilities, and they're taking ownership of their education, their lives, some of it still with a lot of struggle, but it's really neat. And then in the classroom particularly, it's the aha moments when, okay, I've spent years learning and teaching and upgrading my skills and my knowledge about these areas. And then as I transfer that theory and content over and make application into students' lives, it's just sort of like wow, I see light bulbs going on. And it's sort of, oh, that's what that means. Or that's why I do that. Or, those kinds of connections. That's why I think and behave. And I see that probably the most in the introduction to psychology class, where students, what's psychology? Well, that's how we think and behave. But as we start talking about the theories and the content and making application, they sort of, that's why my mom says that. Or, whatever. Or that's why I do that.
Yep.
Or
that makes sense now.
It makes sense. And it gives some backgrounding to that whole thing. And ultimately, the idea there is to influence that change, influence change in their life. And in a psychology classroom, it can happen. Spiritual influence, spiritual change can happen. Personal change happens. Behavioral change happens.
Yeah.
Friendship, relationship change happens. So that's just, for me, that aha moment is like, I'm there.
That's exciting stuff. Keeps you going.
Keeps me going.
And that's what's kept you going all these years, man.
I would say for the most part.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think, I mean, I don't actually have any experience being a teacher, but being a professor, my assumption would be is I think a lot of professors, that's probably one of the main things that keeps them going, is the relationship with the students.
I would think so,
and that feedback and that connection there.
Yeah.
And I know as a student myself, when I was a student here for 4 years, that's something I really valued was that connection with the professors, and they teach you something. Wow, I never knew that. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And I still use some of those same lessons today in my daily interactions.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's what we hope others do too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So at Prairie, particularly, I think we have the ability to come alongside that student when they have those aha moments that maybe even lead to and they're feeling heavy about something because they realize they become self-aware about a situation that's burdensome.
Yep.
And we have that opportunity in community to do that. And I think that's part of the value that we have, or value added piece that we have here, to focus on that personal and spiritual growth in community alongside just really challenging academics.
Yep.
We don't leave that to the back seat or the back burner. That's all part of the engagement that we have here.
And that's really, part of that piece of the education you get at Prairie here is you're going to be challenged academically, and that's healthy and that's good.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be challenged spiritually, relationally, mentally, because you're having new interactions. It's a new environment. You're meeting new people, and I think in the words you say, I think it comes out, and a lot of interactions people have with professors, they comment on this, even staff and faculty, is people want to disciple you. People are here to train you up, to build you up, and it's a very unique environment. You go to somewhere it's a 100-person classroom, 200-person classroom, maybe more, all these campuses, you don't have that unique relationship per se.
You don't.
No.
And you have to watch that, because you have to set boundaries for yourself.
Yep.
Professionally in various aspects, but generally one's ability, and this is what I found different in terms in contrasting pastoral ministry versus here. I can be much more direct in coming alongside a student here, because there's that relationship that I can engender out of the classroom that gives me an opportunity to speak into their lives. And you want to do that graciously.
Yep. But you have a bit of that position to do so.
I do. And I feel, sometimes I feel obligated to do it.
Yep.
Other times I feel just the sort of the tug of the Spirit and say, go over and bump shoulders with somebody there and see how they're doing.
Yep.
And so that's been a unique opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
That God's call in my life, early in my life, was to be involved in the church and to be a minister in the church, and I had to resolve that because I was in pastoral ministry, and I thought, okay, well, that's church ministry, but what does it mean to be involved in the church? When I first came on here 30 plus years ago, I had to, rethink that.
Yeah.
Am I still following God's call in my life to be a minister within the church? And in many ways, I think I've been able to do that more effectively in this environment
Interesting.
than, say, in your traditional church environment.
Okay. That's very fascinating. I don't know if I've heard that kind of thought before or anything, but very fascinating.
Yeah, but that's part of what has kept me here too, is because I was able to come to that resolve
Yeah.
that this is still an extension or a continuation of God's call upon my life from being, from when I was an older teen.
Okay, I've got one last question for you before we finish up here. Coming back just to you, leave the college behind, maybe unless it involves Prairie here. But something I always want to hear, I'm always encouraged by is what sort of things has God been stirring up? Teaching or story, something.
Yeah. Well, I'm moving into retirement.
Okay.
I think.
Because
I don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
I've never been there before. So in so doing, I've got lots of things that I could do. I've set myself up even at home to do some things.
Yeah.
And yet, how do you negotiate all of that and work through all of that? I'm not really sure what retirement would be like. And so I think the big thing that God has been sort of working on me over the last probably year and a half, 2 years, maybe a little more, but it becomes more focused now because it's just it's not too far ahead. Is patience. Is patience.
Patience.
Just to come with an open hand and with all of these ideas around me, but to be patient on trying to understand which ones should I engage and which ones could I enjoy, but maybe aren't necessarily where God wants me right now.
Yep.
So these are very similar questions that have to ask all my life.
Yep.
So those questions haven't changed.
They stay the same.
It's the context has. So I have to make myself more available to Sharon, my wife, and to our family in ways that I haven't been able to previously. But aside from that, there's just lots of other considerations that I need to be patient about and wait for God's leading on and bringing me through.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, Kevin. And, we'll be praying for you as you kind of head into your time of retirement. Once again, learning what it means to be patient, but in a different context. Well, thank you so much for coming here.
Yeah,
and all of you
welcome.
out there, if you want to listen to the other episodes, make sure you check back to see what people who have been on the podcast before and to pay attention to people coming down the road. If you have someone that you'd like to see on here, you can send an email to marketing@prairie.edu or alumni@prairie.edu. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and you can even head to our website to learn about Christian formation and counseling if you're interested. So thank you so much, Kevin. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.